Hello, dear viewer, and welcome to the Catholic League Forum St. Patrick's Day Special. I'm Director of Communications of the Catholic League, Mike McDonald, and joining me today on this great holiday is President and CEO of the Catholic League, Bill Donohue. Bill, before we get into the St. Patrick's Day festivities, I think we should probably take a look at some of the bigger issues we dealt with this week. Now, to start the week, we focus on a subject that might seem a little far afield from what we do here. Normally, we focus on religious liberty, anti Catholicism type issues. But this week you opened up with a piece that a lot of people like because you've got a lot of great insight on the sociological stuff, and you brought that to bear on the subject of why liberals love masks. Can you explain that for us?
Yes, I mean it's not just my observation. I live in Long Island, and you don't see people wearing masks as much there as you do here in New York City. New York City is much more liberal, so there is a connection there. It's not just my opinion. I quote in the piece David Leonhardt, who's got very strong left credentials out of the New York Times, and he says no question about it that the cities that are the most liberal are the ones where people wear the mask, and that's where their fans are.
Yeah.
Now the question then is not whether or not liberals like masks. They do compared to conservatives. The question is why. Well, one of the reasons has to do with are you statist or not? Statist meaning that you were in favor of the state having more power and control in our society. That would be people on the left. That's what they like. And so when the state tells you to do these things, they're more inclined to do it, whereas conservatives tend to be more individual oriented to that extent in terms of their own ideas of freedom. Well, it's still kind of striking to me. I mean, those people on the left, they always seem to be anti-authority. They don't want to be told by the cops or the clergy what to do, but they listen to the professors, don't they?
Yeah.
It's interesting, too, that the conservatives, while we favor more of a minimal state, we don't want the big state. We understand there is a health issue here, but we're concerned about the alarmist and some of the hysteria that's been involved here. Look, the liberals tend to prize individual rights. So do
Right.
conservatives, but they do so to the point of a fixation.
Mm.
There's something else, individual responsibility. Well,
Right.
responsibilities are burdensome. Well, they
Mm.
can be that way. Well, the liberals prefer not to have that, and that's not where they go. It's striking. The college students at the University of Nevada, Reno, walking out of class, demanding that they put back the mask mandate. There's something here about the liberal mentality, which is striking. They're concerned about bodily autonomy when it comes to their abortions and taking drugs. What about bodily autonomy when not wearing a mask? Isn't that a right too? Look, sex and drugs are fun for lots of people. Okay, what does the liberals say about that? We don't want to be told what to do with our body. But when it comes to the mask, they don't see any expense there. They don't see any sacrifice. So, maybe you can just protect us. It's rather strange the way this whole thing flushes out. But there are interesting philosophical strains here involved in something as pedestrian as wearing a mask.
Absolutely. Now, Bill, one of the subjects we've talked about a lot is the school administrators, government officials that, as you point out, are forcing child abuse on children. You got all these schools across the country that have these radical transgender sexual education courses, sexual engineering courses, as you like to call them. You've got schools out in California that are forcing transitions behind their parents' backs. And as we're seeing, more and more parents are waking up, which is a good thing. But there's a congressman, a Democrat from New Jersey, Tom Malinowski, who berated parents. We came across the video this week, and he just ripped into these parents saying that they're terrible, they're power hungry, and they don't really care about their kids. They just want to take power away from school officials. So what did the Catholic League have to do in response?
Yeah, I mean, look, we are very much of the opinion that parental rights have to be paramount in our society.
Absolutely.
More so than with the rights of teachers and administrators. That's their children. Uh, Quite frankly, you do have in some school districts, I'm not saying how many, I don't know how many. In some school districts, there are kids who are sexually confused, and they hear all this talk about transitioning to the other sex, which you can't really do in terms of objective reality. But there are teachers and administrators in some cases which are helping and enabling them, aiding and abetting this process behind the backs of parents. Now that's child abuse. When you tell a kid who's confused about his sexuality that you should consider puberty blockers, and maybe down the line anatomical surgery. We're talking about some serious stuff, which is irreversible and psychologically and physically damaging to kids. And to think that the parents would be out of the loop on this is unbelievable. Now, this representative Malinowski from New Jersey, he's berating the parents who are concerned. He calls them a fringe group. They're not crazy fringe groups. There are crazy fringe groups on the right and on the left. We know that. We're talking here about concerned parents who have every right to protect their children and want to know what decisions the teachers and the administrators are making. So for him to do that, to caricature these women, mostly the mothers, and in this invidious fashion, is something that he should be rebuked for, and that's why I wrote that piece.
Absolutely. And dear viewer, if you are interested in this piece, definitely do check it out on our website, catholicleague.org. We have a link in the description below, but we'll also have, once you get to the website, an email contact so you can get involved in this and stand up for parents that are just trying to protect their children. Now, Bill, another seasonal piece this week. This is the great Catholic season of Lent. And you wrote a very strong piece on the radical nature of Lent. Now, I was reading through it when I just saw the title, and I was a little confused by this. I think of Lent as very traditional, very conservative, maybe even reactionary, but not radical. But you raised a couple of good points that prove that I was wrong. Can you explain?
Well, there's nothing more countercultural today to make a statement than the idea of self-denial. We live in a society where self-absorption is celebrated. And what I looked at in this piece is, where did this idea of self-absorption come from? It came from the humanist psychologist Carl Rogers, Abraham Maslow, and others out of the 1960s and 1970s, where the emphasis is on the self. It's on me. Well, if you take that to too many extremes, and that's what's happened in our society, then you lose interest in the other. And as Catholics, we should have our eyes fixed on the other, particularly the dispossessed who might need our help, the needy and others. But this kind of selfishness, really what it evolves into, is disturbing. So self-denial is looked upon by a lot of secularists, tend to be on the left, as crazy.
Right.
Because they say, what do you mean self-denial? It's important to recognize that Mother Teresa could not have done what she did in comforting the sick and the dying without denying herself, without sacrificing for others. And I even went into the work of Samuel and Pearl Oliner, a Jewish non-believing couple. That's important because they're two sociologists, and they looked at who were the people who were likely to help and save and risk their lives in helping the Jews escape during the Holocaust. It wasn't the secularists.
No.
The self-absorbed were the least likely. It was Catholics and Protestants, and Catholics, I'm very happy to say, came out number one. They did the greatest work. So yes, when you have your eyes on yourself, that's not a good thing. And just ask the Jews who were saved as one little anecdote.
All right, Bill. Now, in terms of St. Patrick's Day, great day. As always, on the Catholic League website, catholicleague.org, we've got a great tribute that you wrote to St. Patrick that explores some of the other elements. I'm sure everyone's familiar with the snakes and the shamrocks and all the fun things, green beer and whatnot. But you take a better look at some of the less known facts about St. Patrick. Could you tell us what some of those are?
Yes, he was actually enslaved by the Irish. He was born in Britain in the 4th century.
Fun story about that.
Exactly.
Bill. My people on my mother's side traced our ancestry back to the guy that kidnapped St. Patrick.
Well, that's about it. But he escaped from slavery. He grew up an atheist, by the way. But he was touched by God. Let's put it that way, and he understood he had a calling. And that while he escaped from slavery, he went back to Britain, he felt that he had to go back to Ireland. While he didn't introduce Christianity to the Irish, he did do more than anybody else to bring it about and further the gospel call. He was the first person in history, a public person, to condemn slavery. Aristotle thought slavery was normal. It was like a servitude situation. Jesus never commented on it. But he didn't invoke natural law, the idea that everybody in his heart of hearts knows there's something that's intrinsically right or wrong. But he understood that nonetheless. He didn't say it in those words. He did believe in human rights for everybody, including women. He was way ahead of his time. And, were it not for St. Patrick, all that we have studied today in the schools and philosophy about the Greeks and the Romans, they wouldn't have those manuscripts had it not been for the monasteries in Ireland, which was set up as a result of the Irish monks So St. Patrick is not just a guy to have good cheer about, which we should. It's also a guy who did more for human rights than just about anybody else in those early days, and he hasn't been given that kind of tribute, including by Irish Catholics who need to learn more about him as they're having some of the suds.
Yes, indeed. So, dear viewer, if you are interested in this story or any of the other stories we talked about this week, do check out our website, catholicleague.org. And as always, if you could give this video a like and subscribe if you haven't already to help us get the message out, we greatly appreciate it. Thanks for watching and happy St. Patrick's Day.